Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the October 8th, 2018 meeting of the ETHS Board of Education. Could we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. So our first item on the agenda is written communication. Dr. Davis, do we have any written communication?
We have no written communication.
Okay, thank you. So we are at information items already, and I see we have lots of visitors, so this is really exciting. Recognition of National Merit and National Achievement Scholars, Dr. Witherspoon.
Yes, well, this is always very, very special for us here at ETHS, as it is special. Board, by the way, I've been told by people who are listening in, talk right into your microphone. Apparently over the cable TV, it can be a little difficult to hear otherwise. So I'm leaning in. But this is very special in any school to have students who qualify as National Merit and National Achievement Scholars. I'm sure, as Ms. Airy will explain in a moment, this is really a high honor for any student in this country to achieve at this really top level. So in a minute, I'm going to ask Ms. Airy to come up and we'll introduce those students. Most of them were able to make it this evening, and we'll be able to recognize them. I'm going to give you, though, so students, listen up. I'm guessing that this is probably not the hardest thing that you'll have to do this week. But what Miss Airy will do is she'll come up and she will actually introduce each of you. And I'm going to suggest that when your name's called, so you're identified as that person, then come forward and just start forming a little semicircle, if you will, behind her. We have cameras here. Don't worry, you are going to be on camera. And we're not only streaming live at the moment and on cable TV live at the moment, but then this is archived and this is on demand in our video library, I guess forever. So anyway, know that we're proud of you, and we just want everybody to get an opportunity to see you and know that. Here are the real instructions, though. After you've all been introduced, then we're going to invite you to come and walk around, I already blew it, to come and walk around the little horseshoe here and shake hands and be congratulated by everybody at this table. When you get to the board president, she's actually has a little memento, a pin that we give to people who are honored at our board meetings. Now, it may not be the most expensive pin in the world, but symbolically, it's actually a real recognition that you were honored by the Board of Education. So I think we got it straight, and we can kind of work it out as we go. So Ms. Airy, our college and career counselor, is going to take over.
Thank you. So the National Merit Scholarship Program is conducted by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. It's an annual academic competition for recognition and college undergraduate scholarships. Students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT, the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, otherwise known as the PSAT NMSQT. Some 16,000 of the high scores, representing less than 1% of the nation's high school graduating seniors, qualify as semifinalists in each annual National Merit Program. Semifinalists are the only participants who have an opportunity to advance in the competition for some 7,500 Merit Scholarship Awards. Tonight, we will be honoring 11 semifinalists. So I'm going to start with Zach Andelman. Over the summer, Zach did a research internship with Northwestern's Astrophysics Department and is co-authoring a published paper in the field of theoretical astrophysics. Zach is a varsity swimmer. He is also the jazz pianist in the ETHS Jazz Ensemble and Jazz Combo and plays tenor saxophone in the ETHS Wind Symphony. He plans to get an undergraduate degree in physics. Zach. Then we have Callista Benson Williams. Callie has been a member of the Community Service Club, the Public Forum Debate Team, and Stage Crew. She also plays violin and is a peer tutor. Callie loves all of her classes, particularly math. We can expect to see Callie as a social worker in the future. Sarah Bloom. Sarah has been part of Wisdom, student ambassadors, and a member of the speech team, where she has garnered tournament champion honors and has been a national qualifier. A mentor during the pilot year of the ChemViz mentorship program, Sarah is now on the exec board. Sarah has also been part of the Society of Women Engineers middle and high school chapter and has attended the Society of Women Engineers conference as part of the High School Leadership Academy. She'll be choosing a major in computer science and/or engineering in college. Abe Frohlichstein-Appel. Abe does math team and Scholastic Bowl and plays on the Ultimate Frisbee team. The courses that have had the greatest impact on Abe have been MV Calculus in his junior year and sophomore courses BC Calc and Modern World History. It is TBD as to where we will find Abe next fall. Christopher Guittardi-Littell. Chris professes that he spends a great deal of time at ETHS. He is humbled by the gifts ETHS has given him, in the people he's become close to, the teachers who have shown great care, and the opportunities given to students to investigate that which means most to them. He is therefore in pursuit of appreciating these gifts and in hoping and acting for their continuation onto fellow students and students to be. Chris would like to spend his future in the physics field. Julian Guittardi-Littell. Julian works in the PROM zone, both at the front desk and in the back repairing students' Chromebooks. Outside of school, Julian is a certified scuba diver. The class that has had the greatest impact on Julian and that he enjoyed a lot was AP Chemistry. That class made him decide to major in chemistry or chemical engineering after high school. Benjamin Keown. Oh, we were expecting Benny. Sophia Noyes. Sophie does a whole lot of theater. She's actually here at the beginning of Tech Week for YAMO. So her theater experience includes the season shows here at ETHS, as well as YAMO. And after 2 years of acting, she is currently on the YAMO writing board. Outside of school, Sophie works with Mudlark Theater and has a job as a host and food runner at Boltwood. She enjoyed AP Block the most out of her high school career, but she thinks BC Calc probably made the biggest impact on her because she had to deal with failure and develop a better work ethic. Sophie plans to continue exploring her interest in college before deciding on what to do with the rest of her life. Grace Palmer. Grace is interested in STEM. She has been a part of Women in STEM all of high school and is serving in her second term as co-president. She is also on the board of the ChemViz mentorship program and enjoys tutoring and mentoring sophomore students. Grace has been on the math team since freshman year and is a community service club member. Let us not forget that Grace also puts her love of physics to use as a dancer and violinist. She wants to go into a STEM field and will major in either physics or engineering. 2 students unavailable this evening that we want to be sure to honor are also Jonathan Hauser and Nicholas Marcotte. So our 11 semifinalists. If we can get the 8 of you to start your semicircle march here. Shaking hands. If you're wondering what to do next, you guys get to partake in the lemonade and cookies and are not required to stay for the rest of the board meeting.
But
Congratulations.
before you leave, because you might even want to study tonight, who knows? Could I just again say, several of your family members and friends are here tonight, and to all of you, a big congratulations, because it really does become, you know, the whole family and all those who surround you with love and support. So we congratulate them as well. But again, thank you for coming tonight and increasing the brain power in this boardroom by a great deal. We're very proud of you.
What a great way to start a meeting. All right. I see Mr. Farmer is up, ready for the next item on the agenda, which is the report of summer school.
Let's do it. And Board, I'll just remind anybody listening in that Mr. Farmer is on our science faculty here, but he is also the principal of the ETHS Summer School and has been doing, is this about 4 years now, Bill? Yeah, 4 years. So we're very fortunate that he has stepped forward to take this leadership role as well.
Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to share some highlights from the summer school report for the 2018 summer school year. There we go. Maybe not.
There we go.
There
Yes.
it is. Just as a reminder, our summer school program operates for 26 days, and it's broken up into 2 13-day sessions. We consistently have over 1/3 of our ETHS students enroll in at least one summer school course. The program provides opportunities that include enrichment, course preparation, or academic recovery of credits. The courses are structured to meet the 60-hour minimum of instruction time that is required to earn a high school credit per the state of Illinois. So we offer these courses in either 2 formats, 26 days for 2.5 hours a day, or 13 days for 5 hours. That includes a 30-minute lunch break. So as we look at the enrollment trends, we did see a slight dip in 2018, and in kind of reviewing the data, it looks to be that the dip was mostly associated with students in recovery courses. So all of the courses, biology, chemistry, math courses, English courses, history courses that are typically graduation requirements actually had a dip. And whether this was just a one-year blip or potentially also due to a decrease in the number of students failing those courses as well, which seems to be one of the trends that we noticed as well. There's fewer D's and F's, so that could attribute to why there's fewer students enrolled in those courses. But we'll kind of see sometimes it's like a pattern where students wait a summer and then make up the course the next summer, but we'll see if that particular trend continues. But enrollment in all the other courses for enrichment, we also have a lot of courses. You'll see 2/3 of our incoming freshmen, typically, or just over half of them, 60%, tend to take at least one course before they start their school year. So that's definitely one of our larger populations. We do see kind of a trend where students, as they become upperclassmen, don't take as many summer school courses. That's one of the things I'll kind of talk to you about at the end. We've been playing around with some ideas maybe to increase opportunities that might allow for more summer learning to extend to students of all grade levels. I do want to highlight just a couple programs that continue to be successful in supporting student transitions, especially since about half of our summer school students are incoming freshmen. One of the courses that a lot of incoming freshmen take is the Access ETHS class. That's the course we operate the most sections of. We had 8 sections this year. We had another relatively large incoming freshman class, so we had just under 169 students take that course. And we find that they represent the whole spectrum of our incoming 9th grade students. We also offer a co-taught version of that course too, to provide opportunities to assist our students with special needs as they transition to ETHS. As part of that course, we always conduct a survey, and we find that 95% of all the students agree or strongly agree that they feel better prepared for their classes for ETHS. So that continues to reinforce kind of how successful this program is at helping to get students oriented to the different resources, allowing them to meet their classmates. I included a few student quotes about how it really helped them to interact with other people, meet people in kind of an intimate environment where they got to know their classmates and navigate the school. One of the famous activities that they engage in is a scavenger hunt, where they're trying to make their way through this massive building. And it's exciting for me to watch their confidence grow, because at the beginning of the year, they have no idea where anything is, and by the end of the year, they're actually directing sometimes upperclassmen because they're more familiar with some of the locations within the building. We also do some outreach for students with respect to their placements and looking at their MAP scores. One of the targeted programs that the district has continued to support is our reading and math in the social context. We've really worked to try to make sure that students are aware that this opportunity is available to them, so that they can get some academic interventions to help them improve their reading scores. So every winter, when we get their winter MAP scores, we send notifications out to incoming 8th grade students, and Kawana Brown, as our school-wide reading specialist, has kind of taken on the charge of doing these outreach efforts, making phone calls, follow-up emails. We host an informational night for parents to meet the teachers of the course and talk them through the curriculum. And we found that this year was one of our most successful years in terms of some of the transformations that we saw with student scores. So we were able to get 29 students to enroll in this course. And this course is sometimes tricky to get students to agree to participate in, because it is a 26-day, 2-credit course, because they really spend a lot of time working on math and reading in kind of a non-traditional sort of setting. They incorporate a lot of field trips. And we had over half of the students make some significant gains in their reading scores, where 12 students raised their scores enough to move out of freshman reading into the Earned Honors Humanities. And then we had 7 students who raised their scores enough to move out of any sort of reading support and are actually able to take the biology course with their freshman year. And so we continue to kind of foster this course and try to figure out ways to make sure that students take advantage of this opportunity. Another very popular segment of summer school is just the prep courses. So we have prep courses for freshman English, different math courses. We have a relatively new reading and science course where we also try to target students who maybe can just use some academic boosters to get ready for the course that they're going to take in the fall. We also kind of looked at reformatting the College Now. It had taken a year sabbatical off of being offered, but we figured out a way to structure it in a 4-day workshop format, and also figure out a way to adjust the cost to make it more enticing and open to more students. So we're hoping to expand upon this success. Beth Airy, who was just in here, was the person who kind of teaches this, and it's targeted towards rising 12th grade students to help them just kind of get ready for applying to college in the fall. We also offered for the first time a science elective course, a biotechnology science elective. So this was a course that was specifically geared towards 10th, 11th, and 12th graders who've completed biology. We were hoping to get more students enrolled, but we still ran the course, and we're hoping that the students who participated in the course had a really good experience. And usually new courses sometimes are a little slow, but then as word of mouth spreads, that was actually a fun, really engaging course. This curriculum was developed by one of our biology teachers in collaboration with Northwestern. So there were a lot of cool hands-on lab activities that really build upon a freshman biology experience or an AP biology experience that allows students the opportunity to work in that emerging field. Just a couple highlights. I know it's hard to be thinking about Summer School 2019 already, but before you know it, registration will be opening in January, on January 22nd, so you may want to mark your calendars. All families will be getting communications to push out what courses will be offered. Typically, we put together the final course catalog just before we depart for winter break, so you have a few weeks to kind of peruse through the courses and think about what you might want to do over the summer, and those are the dates for the different summer school sessions. In terms of some of the things that we're looking forward to is continuing, you'll notice within the financial goals, I've really made it a priority to work on figuring out how to balance our revenue and expenditures. And while typically we've always operated with more expenditures than revenue, I've been, over the last 4 years, really been shrinking that gap a little bit to figure out ways to operate summer school more efficiently and provide students with even more resources at a lower cost to the district. The other area that we would like to look at is trying to figure out how we can increase summer enrichment opportunities to get a greater percentage. So while 1/3 of our student population is a pretty sizable amount of students who are spending some extra time at ETHS in the summer, we would like to figure out ways to get more students involved in summer learning. One of the things that we're looking at is potentially looking at mini courses or ways to break up the segment of, like, we have to meet a 60-hour minimum to get a full credit, but we might be able to design courses that are half credits or even quarter credits to create maybe a little mini workshop experience that might be more doable for people who have busier schedules, because we get the feedback from rising juniors and seniors especially that their schedules are busy, they have summer jobs. But if it's a shorter time commitment where it's only 4 days for a couple hours a day, it might be something that we could entice and provide just opportunities to kind of dabble in or enhance learning experiences. So that's something that we're going to be looking at and trying to talk to some teachers too, because it could be an opportunity like the biotechnology course. It's the first time we've ever offered that type of course, and I'd like to see summer school almost be a testing ground to kind of pilot some new innovative ideas or think of ways to do learning in a way that's slightly different than the traditional format, since we have some flexibility. And so I'll take any questions that people may have.
Questions? Phoebe?
Thank you for that. My question is about the recovery courses. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. Go for it.
Is there going to be a deeper dive into that data to really try to determine why those numbers are lower? And I'm hoping that it's not impacting our on-track numbers for graduation. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. No, that was a good question. We've seen some long-term trends in certain courses as the failure rates have declined. So even the humanities courses have had lower numbers over the last several years. And this year we were a little surprised because some of the science courses, biology, chemistry, and the math courses also had a significant, in some cases, 30 to 40% drops in terms of what we would have expected in enrollment trends that were pretty consistent. But then when we looked at the data, then the amount of students failing those courses was also declining. There are still students who could be using summer school as the opportunity to recover those credits and trying to enforce or make sure students are signing up for those in a timely manner and see that as a viable option, because it does get tricky for some students to stay on track if they get behind in too many credits. So we're definitely going to be looking at that, though, to see. That's why I'm going to be interested to see if the enrollment trend persists again this year. We're really going to have to kind of look at that. And plus, it'll raise questions of the feasibility of offering all those courses every year. For example, if we only have one student who's trying to make up U.S. history semester 1, we can't really run a course with one teacher and one student. And so we've had to kind of wrestle with how to best address that, but also to make sure that students can make up credits that they need to graduate.
Phoebe has a question.
So it's less of a question, and well, I guess it could be a question. So I really like the idea of having like half a credit or just a summer school workshop in general. That's something that if I weren't graduating this year, something that I would definitely be interested in, especially something like biotechnology because I'm really interested in biology. But just in like talking with teachers and like seeing if that's something that's actually like a plausible option. I also recommend talking to students and seeing if that's something that they're actually interested in doing. Because I know that I'm interested in doing it, but I'm not every single student,
Right.
so.
No, that's a good point. I definitely should survey students to see if they would be interested. Yeah.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I'd like to zero in on the rising ninth grade, partly because I think we all agree on how valuable that experience is to success at ETHS, and also because it has by far the highest enrollment of all the courses. So when I look at the demographics, the number of white students in that program is 3 times the number of black students in that program. And we know that that's not reflective of the overall population. And so there is an equity concern here. And, you know, there are a lot of students who, for whatever reason, are not getting the value of that experience going into ETHS. And I'm wondering what we're doing about that, and in particular, to what extent we are involving District 65 in having them, the 8th grade program, encourage participation in these programs at ETHS.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's something that we're certainly mindful of in terms of making sure that we have a representative population of students in summer school and making sure that all students that want to take summer school have access and the ability to take summer school. One of the driving challenges sometimes is that summer school does have a cost associated to it. And while we do, you know, the board generously offers a reduced fee for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, it still can sometimes be a limiting barrier just to have to pay anything. That's why with some programs we do try to waive all fees if possible in terms of managing that. And that's something we may have to explore too to see if we need to offer an even greater scholarship for students in need to be able to access summer school. I know that Allie Hart, in her communications with the principals of all of the middle schools, always talks up summer school and the importance of the transition through that. Her and I communicate regularly to figure out how we can improve the communication and access around that. You know, and I think making sure that parents know, sometimes parents also have confusion that they just assume that summer school is automatic, and since if they're new to the district, they don't know that they actually have to physically register for it. And so we're trying to figure out ways to help bridge that communication gap as well to make sure that, you know, they know that registration starts. And that's why we've started to put registration right after that freshman information night or freshman registration night. So now registration opens up pretty much right after they leave that building. We tell them registration for summer school is going to start, you know, next week, and you're going to get an email. And so if you want to take summer school, please sign up that way.
I mean, I wonder if we could even engage District 65 teachers in helping to identify students who would particularly benefit from, and giving, I mean, nobody's going to be forced to go to summer school, but
Right.
encouragement.
And that's one of the things too, when we, for that reading, math, and social context course, we invite over 200 students initially. And then that number typically, it's based on the winter map score, and by the spring map score, maybe only 100 students are kind of in the target area for that course. But we still, that course we offer 100% free to make sure that there's no barriers for students to have access to that course. And we're doing the same thing with the reading and science course, but we're still trying to figure out if we need to start offering kind of like a hybrid version of reading and math. So if students can't participate in the full 26 days, can we maybe create a condensed version to create an opportunity for students to gain from that experience as well. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mark?
Just to follow up on what we were just talking about here, somewhere in the data, there's some answers to some of these questions, I think. And I don't know whether we can mine it or not. It's complicated. I've been sitting here thinking about it, sort of a moving target. But it seems to me that we ought to be able to mine the data and find out what the correlation is between kids that come in and take those courses and their performance in their freshman year, once it starts. And if we can firm that up enough to where we're comfortable, that can be, I think, a very powerful marketing message and a very powerful message for those District 65 teachers and advisors to take to those students and their families. For instance, you've struggled, you student A have struggled in, whatever, in reading or math. And we know that if you'll take this summer school course, we would expect you to do this much better in your freshman year than if you don't take this course, because that's the experience we've had with a body of data. That's a very powerful message, and I think could help. And I'm just wondering how we can tease that out, if that can be. And it's tough. Because we don't know who's taking it and how capable they are and what they would have done had they not taken it, and I don't know. But that's something that somebody who's a little more facile with statistics than I am might be able to figure out.
Yeah,
Just an
somebody
idea.
who's more facile in statistics than I am as well, but I'm happy to try to get some answers to that question. I know one of the things that we've looked at too is even just like the names of courses or some of the curriculum designs could be more enticing to students. When I'm always at the freshman information nights and parents are like, yeah, you're going to take Prep to 1 Humanities English, you're going to practice reading and writing, and kids are like groaning, oh, can't I take like the graphic design class or something? So even some of these courses that are like prep courses, we can probably disguise it in a curriculum that's a little bit more authentic and engaging, where students are actually engaging in science or writing or reading in ways that, are fun. I dare to say, learning can be fun, but we could use the opportunity to maybe restructure. So that's one of the things that we've been talking about just as a team and talking to Allie with the Access curriculum to find ways, to move past like Prep to 1 Humanities and maybe just have like a summer writing course or, a creative writing course or something that, would allow students to practice those skills, but in a different way. And I think that's why students end up reporting that the reading and math in the social context course is more interesting, because they're learning math and doing reading in the context of interacting with the community and more day-to-day skills and not the typical like textbook type curriculum. So that's one of the things that we're hoping to do too, but getting that data would be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I was also thinking about increasing the enrollment. The upperclassmen, for the percentage of students who don't go on to 4-year institutions, nor do they go on to Oakton or other 2-year institutions, what would it look like if we created opportunities for them to explore career clusters? Students who are looking for the shortest path to a career, and they're kind of, there's no plan, no real direction, just in terms of a plan for transitioning out and to expose them to different career clusters possibly.
Some good thoughts about summer school. I know you and your team has been working on trying to make summer school feel good, normal. I know that you're working against a lot. There's some competition for students' time, so we have to make sure that they understand that it is helpful and it will benefit them in the long run. So I love the suggestions of my colleagues. So, and thank you for the report.
Yeah.
And all this great information.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks. Right. So next on our agenda is the report of student activities. This will be another very good report.
Somewhere, there she is.
Yeah, there she is.
Nicole Boyd is our Director of Activities and our Student Success Center. She is one of the most highly visible people around ETHS, and when you think about all that it entails to keep all of the student activities going on at this school, it is no small endeavor. But Nicole, thank you for being here tonight. And I think, Board, I think you'll appreciate hearing about our involvement of our students in activities.
Thank you. Good evening. I wish I would have gone behind the National Merit semifinalists, because listening to all of the things that they're involved in would have been a perfect segue to this report. So here we go. Student activities. So I'm going to start off by reading the extracurricular activity philosophy of the school. I think it sets the groundwork for the work that happens in our department. It's a little lengthy, but please bear with me. At Evanston Township High School, our goal is to inspire a lifelong passion for learning. We provide a variety of opportunities for learning in the classroom and beyond through the arts, sports, and activities. Extracurricular activities are an integral part of many students' high school experience. Positive participation in activities helps to increase students' engagement in the school community. Extracurricular activities provide all students with opportunities to develop aspects of leadership, self-discipline, responsibility, teamwork, self-confidence, commitment, and student wellness, while pursuing an interest that may lead to a career or lifelong hobby. Extracurricular activities offer participants the opportunity to be leaders and role models on campus and in the community, and enable participants to represent the school district in a positive manner. So simply stated, the goal of the Student Activities Department is to get students involved, particularly in clubs and activities. I will talk about extracurriculars as a whole, but a lot of the focus is just on clubs and activities, which is in alignment with the district goal 2. ETHS will connect each student with supports to ensure that each student will experience social emotional development and enhanced academic growth. I do want to mention that I think it's important, as you'll see through some of the pictures, while some of the data captures students who are officially on a roster for clubs and activities, student activities departments reaches school-wide, and there are plenty of opportunities for students to either be involved or be a part of an experience that is not captured by enrollments on an activity roster. So last school year, we offered over 65 clubs and activities, which is a little bit down from the numbers we had seen in previous years. We were closer to 90, but last year it was closer to 70. And we have a wide variety of activities offered, anything from student government to technology-based groups to performing arts to service organizations. Several of our clubs are competitive. We have competitive clubs that represent, perform, or compete on behalf of the school, and then several, most of which are special interest groups. I will share a few of our competitive highlights, starting with our SHIP Junior. It's our Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers program, which is sponsored by Michelle Vasquez. So they compete annually in the Chicago Regional Science Bowl, and last year, unfortunately, it was the first year since 2009 that they did not place. However, they were one of the top 2 schools standing. Whitney Young swept first through 3rd places. So we were right there with them for a while. At least they're orange and blue too. So they also participated in their national conference. They go every year. Last year was in Kansas City. They're preparing to go this November. I forget where they're going this year, but they are a wonderful group of kids. Scholastic Bowl, I heard a couple of the students who just left, one who isn't here, Benny Keown, is a very solid program, highly decorated. They placed 3rd in the Illinois Masonic Academic Bowl Tournament, 3rd in the Nutra Invitational, 1st place in the Loyola Invitational. We were the regional champs, placed 3rd in sectionals, and had an undefeated regular season. We had 2 students, J.J. Shankar and Benny Keown, who were all state sectional teams. Last year, we had a new sponsor. Terry Gatchell is a science teacher. The previous sponsor no longer works at ETHS, but still a very solid, strong showing from our students. Our mock trial team is also very decorated. They came in 3rd place at the North Suburban Bar Association tournament, 2nd place at the Kane County Bar Association tournament, and they were top 8 in the State Bar Association. Sponsored by Kevin Kapic and Allison Chiaro. And they saw, this program saw a lot of growth in terms of more students who identify as female who joined this club last year, so we're really proud to see that representation. Our E-Squad dance team is always a pep rally favorite. They competed at the Youth Step USA competition and came in 4th place, and are sponsored by Dwana Frazier and Michelle Lyle. Our math team placed 10th at North Suburban Math League competition and 10th place in state, and had a few individual recognitions at state as well, which is sponsored by Andrew Siegel and several of his colleagues in the math department. And our DECA team is always doing very well. They compete regionally, they compete at state, and several of the students here, we just didn't have space on the PowerPoint, also received international commendation for their performances and on their projects. We hear, I'm not gonna read them all, but we do have several 1st and 2nd place at state in individual and partner activities. It's co-sponsored by Jenny Weber, Chris Manella, and Dave Feely. And the Key and the Evanstonian, they are sharing a slide. They compete together at sectionals in state. The Key is the yearbook, Evanstonian is the newspaper, came in 2nd place at sectionals last year. We had several different recognitions and acknowledgement, and in terms of the Evanstonian, you could see all of the placements there in the different categories, and at state, Katie Donati, she was she was my person for student activities. Several of the editors have different departments that they have to go. I was her beat. That's how you call it. I was her beat, or we were each other's beat. So I'm really proud of Katie. She came in 2nd place at state. Sarah Young sponsors the Key, and Rodney Lowe, who has retired, and Patricia De La Cruz is the new teacher who co-sponsor, released last year, the Evanstonian. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at participation, and there are several slides, and there are some additions to the written report that you have. So looking back at from 2013 until last school year, and here's a look at by federal race code, the number of students who were involved, and if we look at the data taken from the 2017-18 opening school report. So those numbers there include students who are in the main campus, who are off campus at Safe School or Ombudsman. So that's the total number, enrollment, and the percentages of students who were involved. These numbers are just clubs alone for last school year, but then I'll be able to show you the percentages since 2014 when I stepped into this position. Do we need another moment with this slide? Okay. Okay, so here's another look at some of the percentages over the last several school years. We can look at, for example, we can look at the Hispanic Latino population in 2014-15 school year. 36% of Hispanic and Latino students were involved in at least one club or activity. For the 15-16 year, 37%. For the 16-17 school year, there was 39%, and then 17-18, there was 29%. So looking at just coming behind Bill Farmer and his report, I think I would like to be able to depict that data and the trends a little bit differently, but at least we have the percentages here. I liked his visual a little bit better, but so this is at a look over time. So there's quite a bit of consistency. Some of the, I'll note, like for students who identify as Asian, when we see, or maybe not even Asian, the students who like American Indian, or Alaska Native, it's important to remember that these are such a smaller number of kids. So when we see large percentage or differences in the percentages, because it's a significantly smaller number of students. Okay, so we also take a look at students who are involved in 2 or more activities, and this is just strictly clubs and activities. So it's not a club and a sport. It's strictly like I'm an ambassador and I'm in student council, or I'm in community service and I'm in the knitting club. So for last year, there were about 531 students who participated in 2 or more clubs. So looking at our Black male students and their participation last year, we had the district had a focus on Black male students in achievement, and so there were 141 Black male students who were in clubs and activities, and I was also curious to see how many participated in extracurriculars at whole. But this is extracurriculars means student activities, fine arts, and athletics, because we all have the same reporting structure in terms of like our roster management. So that's how we can all get the same data. So this does not include students who are doing community service or other activities that we can't capture their participation in the same manner. So again, it's clubs and activities, fine arts, performance, and athletics. So we looked at also what year in school the students were last year. We looked at the freshman class, and they're in their grad year. So students who were seniors last year, there were 62 from the class of 2018, 67 from the class of 2019, 55 in the class of 2020, and 2021, there were 74, so more involvement from incoming freshmen. And I know this data was looked at elsewhere too in other reporting in terms of the number of Black male students who were in 9th grade who the participation improved last year over the previous. So some things that we do, we have a strong emphasis on the freshman class, or incoming freshmen and freshmen, in terms of marketing and recruitment to get students involved. We start seeing incoming freshmen in the spring of their 8th grade year. We partner with athletics, and we go out to the middle schools and either see students in their PE classes or an assembly, depending on how the feeder school principals handle it. And then we invite them personally here to the incoming freshman sports and activity fair, which is held sometime in February of each year. So that's the first time we're giving the message to get involved. Then once the students get here, the very first day of school at the freshman assembly, we're all together encouraging the freshmen to get involved. Myself, or our department, Fine Arts, Community Service, and Athletics, we all present to freshmen in their FASH classes on Get Involved. We just did that a week ago. So we also host activity fairs. Last year, we had to move our activity fair from the main lobby out here into the senior courtyard. We've lucked up with the weather because we've kind of outgrown that space because we have so many clubs and activities and so many students involved. We also see students in the Access ETHS class in summer school. We participate in the transfer student lunch. We also match, for every transfer student who comes in, they take an interest inventory and tell us the things that they're interested in, and we work with Ms. Hart and connect the students to the sponsors and coaches of their, that match their interests. And the other stuff is just kind of how we promote stuff inside of the building with technology or things on the tables, or at Happy Friday in the entrance. Different clubs will sign up depending on what they have going on, or what if there's an awareness week, and pass out information and goodies at the front door. So we have a lot of ways that we get the word out to students about getting involved, and we have a lot of attention on the freshman students in terms of involvement. So our department is really busy. So we host quite a few events. I won't read them all, but we do have, the spring and fall blood drives, spirit weeks and pep rallies. We end the year with prom and the junior senior barbecue. A lot of fun things are going along all the time. And Dr. Witherspoon participates and has a good time too. Okay, so some of our major events last year was homecoming. At our homecoming royalty for 2017 were Jason Calhoun and Brianna Jackson. We had that shift from king and queen to royalty at the end of the 2016 year with that prom court. So last year we had about 800 plus students attend the dance, and it was dressed to impress. The students always vote on their theme, and student council hosts this dance. The FROSH Staff Formal had about 450 students. Last year they had a masquerade ball. And that's Beardsley Gym. People always look at pictures and like, is that really in the gym? We totally transform the gym, make it look like something totally different. For prom 2018, it was at Navy Pier. It was an enchanted evening. We had about 710 students and guests there. Hakeem Quadri and Selma Martinez, were the prom royalty. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, we did a lot of work last year and had some really nice accomplishments that weren't necessarily activity related. We created an evaluation process for clubs and activity sponsors. The stipend committee got that charge as a part of the teacher contract. That's something that we needed to do. The athletic department has been evaluating coaches and assistant coaches for some time, and so student activities and fine arts really needed to get on board and be able to do the same thing. So we spent a lot of time in discussion about what that should look like, what values and things were important to us, and what was really manageable for us with such large departments. And the key areas that we wanted to focus on in terms of the tool itself are professional duties, program development, instruction and preparation, leadership, and student relationships. So this year, the Fine Arts Department and the Student Activities Department will be evaluating sponsors and directors on a biannual basis. We also worked together too, the same departments plus the pilot committee and the communications office and other administrators to update the extracurricular activity code. And we also really worked hard to enhance the extracurricular activity eligibility process as a result of removing some academic barriers last year, which was really exciting to be able to do. A lot of work went into this, and I have to give a lot of credit to our IT department because the athletic department was really doing a lot of this work already. And so again, another area where student activities and fine arts needed to get on board too. So a lot of reports we had to gather, putting together letters and trying to automate as much as we can to push out grade information on the weekly grade checks to students and families and sponsors. So we spent a great deal of time trying to be in alignment with athletics about something that they were already doing and really stepping up some of the academic supports that were already offered, looking at homework center, looking at study table, looking at freshman study table, another academic support in the South Study Cafe, on some evenings, and really trying to think through when we could offer supports and keep students involved too, and how we could work around practices and do things in addition, just offer some flexibility to keep kids in their practices and also to get them the targeted support they needed. One of the things that we're really proud of is the study table system of accountability is a lot stronger than it used to be, and on the sheets it tells you, in addition to the grade report, students we're telling them where to go for help and not just get this signature, but really if you're struggling in math, you need to go to your math teacher, go to the Math Study Center, go to Wildcat Academy. Really making sure that the supports match the strongest areas of need. So we spent a lot of time on that, and again, a great deal of that work was done through our IT department, which we're really grateful for. So then also, last year we had some retirements. Rodney Lowe, the Evanstonian advisor, he retired after a very decorated, lovely career here. He was a teacher of mine a long time ago. And he retired with the Evanstonian, and Robin Harkness, who was my partner in student activities, she retired at the beginning of this school year. So I must say a thank you to so many people. First, our club and activity sponsors. There are some who do receive stipends for our competitive or our clubs that perform or compete, but most of our clubs are run by staff volunteers, so we could not be able to brag about all of these things without our support. So a big thank you to all of our staff members who sponsor clubs. And we also have several volunteers in some of our clubs, like our Youth Technology Corps has some volunteers. Our Green Team has a volunteer, so we do have a lot of volunteers too. Our Kiwanis Club, they are awesome. They recognize our students in student activities and fine arts and athletics and community service. We all kind of rotate monthly and have different recognitions for different groups. So here are students from the yearbook with Miss Young who got recognized last year, who are really excited about that. The Booster Club, they provide us with a lot of equipment, and they have special allocations for us twice a year. It's that time of year now where they ask us, what do you need? And we ask sponsors, what do you need? And they come back, and we share that with the Special Allocations Committee, and they vote on it. And I think last year they gave us about $30,000 worth of equipment in student activities. I'm forgetting which year we got the new Willie costume, but the boosters paid for that. They provided student activities with a color copier, cameras. They're just really generous and very appreciative of that. We partner with the Women's Club of Evanston to host the Dreams Delivered fashion show. They offer prom dresses to students, prom dresses, makeovers, accessories, shoes, purses for students attending the prom. And every year we have about 90 students who take advantage of that and get all of their prom attire completely free, which is wonderful. We have the fashion show here during the day and the senior assembly, which is always fun. We have a variety of partnerships with Northwestern and the Women in STEM, and work with Kristen Perkins a lot to meet a lot of student needs and interests. Our SHIP Junior, some of this, we partner with their SHIP Junior at our SHIP at Northwestern, and they co-advised here with Ms. Bosca. So we have a great relationship with Northwestern and student activities and family focused. Joanne Avery runs a girls group here on Friday during lunchtime. So we're very grateful for all of the support that student activities receives. And finally, are there any questions?
So I have a quick question, and then more of an observation. The question, and I was trying, you were going kind of fast at the beginning there, and I jotted down that we had like 65 clubs that we offer, and that's down from, I think you said around 90 or something? Mm-hmm. So that would be a reduction of, I don't know, what, 20 some odd % or more. Is that because the interest in these things ebbs and flows, or is it because of things like lack of sponsors?
Both, but a lot of it has to do with a lot of times, so really like passing down leadership in different groups. We have a lot of strong students who start clubs, and then we don't always leave them in the hands of the students who come behind once they graduate. So that's one of the biggest things that I notice all the time. Some of the clubs die out with the students who started them. So we talk a lot about maintaining them. Sponsorship is a challenge. We do have several staff members who sponsor more than one club. We also, to meet that need too, a couple years ago, we started on Tuesdays and Thursdays opening up the hub to groups who don't have a dedicated sponsor. So if there's a group of students who are really interested, they've got that supervised time between 3:45 and 5 where they can be there and meet and assemble and have an adult there for supervision. But I think there's I think there's some natural ebbs and flows. There is the piece about leadership and legacy that we really have to work on, and the sponsorship thing is a real challenge as well.
Do you have a feel for how many clubs didn't happen because there was no sponsor? Or do you find
No,
a
not
way?
really. It's really more about the legacy piece than
Yeah,
the sponsor
okay.
piece, because even if they can't, we still have a space for them to
Yeah,
meet. We
right,
still
okay.
have someone supporting them, but,
So it doesn't sound like that's a big problem.
no.
Okay.
No.
Again, I want to reiterate our approach or philosophy to this. If any groups of students want to start a club or activity, we are willing to do that with them.
Find a way, yeah.
And so it really does depend on student interest, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we say, well, that club's not doing very much, so we'll eliminate it. We don't do that. But again, so let's say I remember a few years ago, we had some students who wanted a club in bass fishing. And they got going on bass fishing, but then they graduated, and we didn't have anybody else who wanted a club on bass fishing. And so we really, though, have a philosophy. If students have an interest, we'll work with them to have that club.
So if I could just go on, you know, the scope of this offering is impressive. I mean, it just kind of drops my jaw every time I hear this report about the number of things that go on here outside of classrooms. It's just amazing, and you know, that's in large part, Nicole, because of your efforts and skill in doing that. We certainly appreciate that. In the data, you know, I was looking at our goal, the aspirational part of our, you know, how we measure this. It says 100% of our students will be in an extracurricular activity, right? That's the aspirational goal. That's what we shoot for. And the only place where I can see where we've combined it, and I think the piece that's missing here by and large is athletics, right? And you only combined it in that one chart where it was on the black male participation for this last school year.
Right.
So I think our reporting, you know, because I'd like to look at this, you know, get a snapshot, and then we can dive deeper and start breaking it up. But it's always helpful to say, here's our goal, 100%, right? That's the aspiration. And then be able to look at it year by year and look at the total participation. How are we doing? Did we have 55% or 70% or 60% of every student in the building? And is that number growing every year toward that goal? Right? It's just, and that's sort of a real quick 35,000-foot look at it. And we certainly want to dive deeper, but I think it would really help us to get that, you know?
So I do have the number of I have the number and the percentage of the students who were involved in extracurriculars last year, but I would still caution that does not include community service. It doesn't include like the students who serve as a hub greeter in the hallway. It doesn't capture students who are fans at a sporting event. It doesn't capture a lot of the data.
Capture everything that we believe meets that definition that's in that goal of participation in an extracurricular. If we think monitoring in the hall meets that criteria, then it'd be really good to have just that big number to see how we're doing.
Yeah, so for last school year, for extracurriculars, student activities, athletics, and fine arts, for the three of us who report the same way, there were 2,112 students who were involved, and that's 59.2%.
59, so just under 60%.
So, but that's extracurricular?
Extracurricular.
So that's extracurricular, but not clubs?
No, that's clubs.
Clubs
That's
and, clubs and extracurricular?
Clubs,
sports,
sports,
and fine arts.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But Nicole, is that also co-curricular? Like if you're in the band?
No, that's not.
And you're in the marching band or all
Yep.
these jazz bands or whatever.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of
that's-
co-curricular. Or if you're
Yeah.
in
Sure.
art, we have art clubs, but we also have students who just through their art courses participate in art exhibits and art fairs, and that's not really a club, but it's co-curricular. So there are lots of other ways
Yeah.
that students in
Well,
our
I didn't even
school-
realize that fine arts wasn't, until you
Well,
said
fine
it,
arts is
sort of
included.
Yes, but
midway,
not
But
the
co-curricular.
co-curriculars.
Not
Yeah,
the
no
co-curricular.
marching
not.
band.
So like if you're in, no, but if you're in a, yeah, correct. But if you're in Yamo or a
Yes,
play.
yes,
Is that in this data you just gave us tonight?
What I just said just a second ago.
Not the ones you just spoke, but the
Yes,
ones that
but
are
for
in the
Black-
written report.
I have to look back at, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, obviously, we need a little clarity around all this, because
There are a
some of
lot
us
of
are
ways that
tossing
students
around
get involved in the
terms.
school.
And-
And then all the ones who do
Right.
community service, they don't belong to any club, but, you know, they're out there.
Yeah,
doing-
and
Or
they
they're
have a
working.
different.
Let me see if I got this right here, because I want to make sure I'm asking for the right thing. It seems to me that for us, top level, right, just top line, to look at
To look
how
at
we're
the goal.
doing against that aspirational goal of
Right.
100%,
Right.
we need to capture every student
Right.
who's doing something
Right.
that meets that criteria that we're talking about.
Right. Right, and
Right,
that's a
and
little,
then
di-
look
and
at
that's a
how
little
we're doing
different than
year by
than just calling it extracurricular, that's correct.
Right.
Because we have students involved in
everything.
other things
Yeah.
that aren't considered, called extracurricular,
Yeah.
but they are involved in, you know, in very active
Right.
part of the school, and many of them you'll see at, you know, different kinds of
Right.
activities. and
So we
events
should
and
have-
the-
So can we capture that data, though? That's my-
Well, we probably, you know,
So this doesn't quite capture.
so she
Right,
says
this
over
is-
2,000
This here on the
students, but
screen
that's
is
not
just,
everybody.
right, this screen here is student activities, clubs and activities only.
Okay.
No sports,
No
no
sports, no
fine
fine
arts,
arts.
no co-curricular.
See, that's why I
Right.
see that
So,
number
yeah.
37%. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's
That's
horrible.
just
But then
clubs
again,
and
athletics
activities.
are
So,
always
yeah.
better.
Yeah, so
It's much
I
better.
got, well, when.
However,
So normally, well, I won't say normally, in the recent past, Chris Livitino and I haven't presented at the same night, on the same time. And in the last couple of years, he and Nick Gale, the Fine Arts Department Chair, and Mary Collins, the four of us, we meet pretty regularly to kind of just talk through our experiences are really similar. So we meet a lot, we share ideas, we think through things. I was trying to anticipate what some questions might be, because if Chris presented first about athletic data, and then I could only imagine that someone would say, well, are you all sharing the same kids? So I wanted
Yeah.
to see how many unique kids were in the three things where we all share data or capture data the same way. So that's that number, 2112, which is about 60% from students last year. But again, community service has a different tool. Their transcript, their service transcript is different than how we have data using our eSchool software.
well, you really do, though, need, shout out, applause, whatever, for the fact that something I complain about, I think, every time we get a report like yours, like the athletic department report, it comes up even in our achievement reporting, it came up in our summer school reporting. So often, the board is presented with total numbers of unique participants, you know, a few hundred, a few thousand, whatever, without regard to what the percentage of our current student body is, which to me is the more relevant point. So if from year to year, we have 200 one year, 300 the next year, 400 the next year, back to 200, you know, I could care less what those hundreds are. I only care about it as a percentage of the student body at that time. And so I thank you a million times over for adding in this slide that I sent a note about to Eric earlier in the day today to say, gosh, I keep asking for this. I really wish in every report we could really just please always do the percentage. So this is huge, and I so appreciate it. And it shows us, you know, for this series of years that you've been involved, the percentage from year to year. And I would suggest to you, I know when you put it up, you said, gosh, maybe there's a better way to present this. I would say, you know, thank you for acknowledging that, because I personally, people will be different. Mark, financial guy, might be perfectly comfortable reading a slew of numbers in a spreadsheet kind of format. I think it is hard to read, and I like the XY axis, which, you know, shows
Didn't
a
even
line
occur to me.
that's jagged, going up or down or whatever. I think that's a little more readable, just, you know, and I think that was one of the lines we saw in the summer school report, maybe. So I think it's huge. And then I think this other point of clarity that we've had tonight around our terminology. I mean, honestly, when I was tossing around the term extracurricular, I just thought it included everything our kids do that's not part of the regular school day. I mean, I wasn't even picking up on this co-curricular versus extracurricular versus
Yeah,
fine arts
that's-
versus clubs
that's
versus
another-
activities. I mean, I think we've all been schooled in that tonight, so, Mark's idea of, starting high and bringing us down and combining that with this percentage thing finally gives us this reporting kind of format where we can all be really sort of comfortable and on the same page and talking the same language, and most importantly, understanding where we need to react or change our behaviors or our incentives or whatever. So thank you. I think it's been really, really enlightening.
Thank you.
What I can reiterate, because we know that the athletic numbers, we know what Nicole has presented tonight. We do know the vast number who are in community service. Our band is growing massively. We have the biggest band we've had in like 2 decades, on and on, the flags, the everything. I can tell you this, the vast majority of students in this school are engaged in activities besides their classroom activities.
And that's really, that roll-up is what we.
Yeah, that is.
I
what
wanted
we're
to share one little thing, if I could. So if you notice, in between each slide, there were pictures.
Yes.
And now these are students, Black male students, who are all involved in something. So you may have students who attended a dance who may not be a member of a club, but they're participating, they're engaged. We have students who do Happy Friday in the doorways, or there's a variety of things that the students do that we don't have, like hardcore, you're on a roster. This is somebody who participated in a pep rally. He's also an athlete, but he's involved. But there's a variety of things that students do to be involved or experience the effects of the work of the department too.
And we also have students who volunteer in our offices that doesn't get captured here too. The dean's
True.
office, I have student workers in my office that don't get, we're trying to find a way to capture all of these big buckets and all of these little rabbit trails of the way students are involved and get that to you.
That would be
Because,
great.
Marcus, ultimately, we're trying to show a correlation between engagement in the school community and outcomes, right? So I just like that you all are communicating and coming together and sharing data, because at some point, all of the student engagement has to be identified, whether it's in the office or what have you, because it's some level of involvement, so that we can ultimately see what impact is it having, in light of this new policy for eligibility requirements for participating in activities outside the classroom. And again, is it having a positive impact on student outcomes, being more engaged? So I'm happy to see that you all are, ultimately, it'd be nice to streamline the data.
Let's go hear from Pat. I know that you've been waiting.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, first, thank you, because this is a ton of work, I know, and it's really important, because I do believe that our kids work really hard here, and to have outlets and places to connect outside of the classroom are just super important, so thank you. My question was around, and Jude just touched on this, the shift in eligibility and sort of reshifting our lens to be clearer that these type of activities are really a level of intervention, or can be a level of intervention for kids. And you mentioned that the IT department really helped you in terms of tracking and keeping track, but I'm wondering if there was any, or if there is plans for sort of working with adults who supervise, who sponsor these activities, to kind of do that shift of lens that we hope that will happen out of the shift in eligibility.
Yeah, so when Chris reports, he'll be able to give you some data about how this impacted athletics. In student activities, we did not see a huge increase in involvement just because the barrier was removed alone, but we would like to spend this school year really reaching out to some students, and some personal invitation can go a long way in really getting some students involved who might not otherwise have been before. But and so we at the during Institute Days is when we student activities gets to meet with the activity sponsors all together during a 2-hour luncheon, so we spent a lot of time there. Sharing about the process and really getting people on board. They were really a part of our thought process back last school year, getting the voice of the adults who were going to be implementing or following up and supporting students. So, so they've been really kind of a part of the process too. But we dedicated really most of the meeting, the sponsor lunch back in Institute days to this. So I'm looking forward to being able to share some awesome news next year to see really how we can grow because of it.
Great, thank you.
Jonathan?
Can we go back to the percentages slide?
Sure.
And I understand this doesn't cover all, I think was that it? Wait a second.
That one?
That's the one, yeah.
Yes.
And I understand this doesn't cover a lot, as we've discussed, a lot of other activities, but for this set of activities, unless I'm misreading that, for white students, black students, and Latino students, for all of those groups, the percentage participating in the most recent year was lower than in any of the 4 previous years. Why would that be?
Well, I'm curious about that too. One thing that's important to note is that the way we captured data last year was attendance-based during club and activity meetings, so there was a lot more distributed responsibility for managing that, opposed to 2 of us really I don't know what word to use, but really reaching out repetitively to capture the data. We got it a lot of different ways: slid under the door, share a Google Doc, an email. So, so now we have, last school year, we started getting this data in our custom apps, which is an in-house software program. So students would scan into their club and activity meetings with each sponsor, which fed right into our eSchool data for our rosters. I don't necessarily want to say that that's the main contributing factor, but we also did have less club offerings as well. So I'm not really sure about that, but there definitely appears to be a drop in participation, but it could be, it's hard to know exactly why.
Yeah, that was actually my comment as well, the obvious decline. And then I just narrowed in on the black male participation, and I know we're in year 2 of having that focus, but I'm always intrigued about the 10th grade year, so the sophomore year, and why participation drops, it seems to. You know, when I think about some of the reports we've gotten from the athletic department, and I know some of that has a lot to do with your freshman year, no cut to, sophomore, but how and I know that it's a very, can be a very challenging year, especially for our black students. That sophomore year, you see them coming in heavy and hard and ready to participate, and then all of a sudden they fall off the radar. That's sophomore year, so I'm looking forward, I guess, to see what the data shows us for this year, with this in regards to this year, this graduating class of 2020, it would be. And if somehow, if we found a way to keep those kids engaged, either through other activities or whatever, but I don't know, that year has always been a very sensitive year for black males. So more of a comment because Jonathan asked my question, but I went into that sophomore year, which I see our numbers low in other things, participation in that sophomore year.
The only other thing I wanted to point out, and I don't even know what we do with what I'm pointing out, but I have before, and I want to be sure I lift it up again. And then we have a lot of young people in this community who are highly engaged in things that are not the school. We have a lot of young people who have jobs, which
Yeah.
is really, in many cases, a very healthy thing for them. You know, that they're getting that experience and that engagement. Their places of worship, their synagogue and their church, their mosque, where they're in youth groups and they're, in some cases, I mean, really immersed in that. Scouting, we have a lot of students who are involved in scouting. And so I just mentioned these kind of things, you know, or another, go any day or night of the week, right this minute, over to Fleetwood Jourdain, and it will be filled with young people there for one reason or another. And I don't know that the other community centers, you know, maybe the Crown Center, I don't know if they're all that filled with youth every night, but I point that out for a reason. We still will never get our arms completely around all of the ways that young people are engaged in one way or another, and in things that are, you know, really contributing to their life experience.
Yeah, that's important, because if we have that aspirational goal of 100%, and we are looking at all of the numbers here, then you're right, Dr. Witherspoon, we'll still miss so many. We can always ask the question, are you engaged in other activities outside of school?
Right.
We can ask that question. So,
Community opportunity, huh?
right, yeah. Pat had another comment.
Well, and that's why I think that having the adults who are sponsors and also classroom teachers is how, I guess, one of the things I hear us all kind of saying is, we want to know how many, because we want to know who isn't, right? And that's really important, is how do we identify kids who could really benefit? And so I came at it from the question of the adults being sensitized to finding those kids and inviting them. And you talked about that, about doing outreach. And we have the data side of how many kids are engaged, so we're the ones who aren't. And I think that's, if I could pick the theme of this last conversation, is really that's of concern to all of us, and I know to you as well. And just how do we figure out who they are and find a place for them, and then have adults who are connecting with them.
So we do, to Dr. Witherspoon's point, we did do that, that look with freshman students, with working with Ms. Hart, and really trying to second semester through their FAST teachers, identifying who's not involved, and then doing a second semester push, like it's not too late, you can still join a club, because really the energy around involvement is at the beginning of the school year. That's when the fair is, that's when everybody's back and ready to get going. So we do that, and we reach out to, and that's with athletics and fine arts, all of us together, and community service partnered, really push second semester too. We didn't see like any huge growths, and we are comfortable with the fact that, I don't want to say the word comfortable, but we understand the fact that students are involved in other things too, but we do specifically with the freshman students reach out several more times over the course of the freshman year to the ones we know that aren't involved.
Well, thank you, and thank you for fielding all of our questions and comments. I know that there were many, but this is important. This is very important to the well-being of our students. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have another report, the discipline and suspension report. And Dr. Campbell is
And
standing.
this is the panel of the doctors. Dr. Campbell and Dr. Robinson and Dr. Bavis. And I think, I don't know, are you going to kick it off, Dr. Robinson? Okay,
Dr. Robinson's driving tonight.
okay. coffee
PhDs
while I
does it
wait.
take to turn on a computer?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good. I'm Keith Robinson, Associate Principal for Educational Services. And it's a pleasure to be able to present this year's, or last year's, student discipline data. A couple of things I just wanted to note that the work is ongoing. We've seen progress. Okay, thank you. But in 2015, ETHS developed a philosophy that was aligned with our equity and vision statements. We've seen Senate Bill 100. We've also seen the school-wide focus on the disproportionality of Black male students. In addition to, we've seen Kingian nonviolence and what that means to our school community. So what you'll see in the next slides, we're just going to show you some 5-year comparisons. You'll see an annual comparison last year versus this year. And we look forward to some questions at the end. There you go. So this is just a quick bullet point of what I'll quickly kind of go through today. We'll kind of jump right into the number of discipline actions, number of suspensions, number of days spent outside of the classroom, number of students with suspensions, and number of students, suspensions per student, and then some next steps. Are you gonna use the red? No. Okay. So here's a number of discipline actions and suspensions. One of the things I wanted to note that the number of suspensions decreased 29% from 2016 to 17 school year. It also be noted that the number of discipline actions decreased 35% last year as well. Ms. Livingston, here are some numbers, just for the sake of talking about the...
My timing was good, thank you.
There you go, good. The sake of just noting last year's data with the number of unique students and the percentage of the population for Black students, Hispanic students, and white students. Couple of notable things in this particular slide. You'll see the number of days spent outside of the classroom has decreased by 60%. 60% since 2014 and 18% since last year. The number of days for the ALC, which is the Alternative Learning Center, decreased 56% over the last 5 years and by 35% last year long. Although the number of days outside of suspension increased last year by 42% overall, the last 5 years, we've seen a decrease of 64%. This is a slide that identifies the unique students suspended inside and or outside. So since 2009-10, the number of students who received one or more suspension has decreased by 46%. In 2016-17, there were 262 students with one or more suspension. In 27-18, there were 256, also noting a decrease since last year. And I did want to point out, we had 262 students who did do a reduction, and a lot of those students did participate in an alternative learning opportunity. As a matter of fact, we saw 31% of those students, they were referred to our SEP program, Students Abuse Program, and 47% of those students had an opportunity to sit and have a restorative practice, which is really good. We also had 20% of our students go through peer conference. Yeah. We are kind of focusing and highlighting just some of the incidents for Black students. And here's a number, here's a slide. Again, a number of discipline incidents for students in the first semester has decreased by 30%, from 942 to 656. You can also see between 2015 and 16 and 2017-18. The categories that saw the greatest decrease were the tardy, detention, harassment, bullying, disruptive acts, and defiance of authority. There was an increase in incidents reported in theft, property stolen, and drug offense. One targeted intervention that we did do as far as the reported acts of theft or stolen property is we believe that that number has increased because of awareness. Students now know that they can register some of their belongings. This year, we held a drive the first 2 weeks of school where students were able to actually bring in their belongings in the main office, in the main lobby, and register it in the system, and also etch it as well. So I'm anticipating we'll have more and more students who are taking advantage of that opportunity, and I'm hoping that the numbers will follow suit. This is a slide that talks about the percent of student population with one or more suspensions. The one thing that, again, you can note from 29-10 to 2017-18, the suspension rate for all students decreased by 9 percentage points, from 16 to 7%. The suspension rates for all students also decreased last year from 8 to 7%. And here's a breakdown from 2009 to 10 to last year of students suspended by race. Again, what you'll see, the Black students, there's a decrease 17%. The Latinx students decreased from 7%. And also the white students decreased 3 percentage points. So we also went back and kind of looked at the unique number of students in years past. And one of the things that kind of struck us when we look at this data was in 09-10, there's been a dramatic or decrease in suspensions for Black male students, if you look at total enrollment. It's almost down a third since 9-10%, since the 9-10 school year. We also did the breakdown for Latino students. Again, number of students enrolled and the unique number of suspensions. As you can see, it's pretty constant there. And number of students, number of suspension for white students, which again, it's pretty consistent from 9-10 to 17-18. So some of the next steps that we're doing, November 13th is our next discipline committee meeting. Well, we'll kind of look and kind of dive in the data last year to really target different infractions that need to have meaningful targeted intervention. What I anticipate will happen is we'll have subcommittee meetings. We started that last year where we really looked at most of the infractions. The Disruptives Acts and Defiance of Authority were two of the largest numbers. It's kind of a catch-all, like in kind of section. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's really kind of a catch-all. So what we're going to do this year is we want to really decide what exactly that means. So we want to tell the story of what exactly is a disruptive act, what exactly is defiance of authority, so we can really target the intervention. Kenya Nonviolence, we had some students 2 years ago. They came to us and really expressed an interest in learning how to promote a peaceful community. And they went through the training for Kenya Nonviolence. We're really excited about it and how we can bring it to our school community to see if there could really be some support behind what that looks like. We were able to get about 30 students trained over the summer in connection with the city of Evanston, which was really good. Students had an opportunity to actually get paid to go get trained, and that was really a great thing for our students who benefited from learning what that was all about. This year, we started a club. Students wanted to really promote a peaceful community here. We started a club, and Mr. Brown, one of our teachers, is the club sponsor who's going to help really support those students in their efforts with getting more students trained, as well as staff and faculty. Some of the other things we're going to continue to do is to use data to target areas of focus and also create a more robust alternative suspension options. We're looking at our PBIS approach to better impact the school community. And one thing I want to make sure I do is thank my lead dean, Cynthia Bumbry, and also Bill Shanahan and Pedro Soriano and Anthony King for the work that they do with our students every day. And we'll take questions.
There's some really good news here, really good news. And I want to highlight two things. One is, and I've beaten this horse every year, is I don't really want to know just how many suspensions there are. I want to know how many disciplinary incidents there are, because we have the power to reduce the number of suspensions simply by deciding not to suspend a student for this very same behavior. So what I'm thrilled to see here is the total, for the first time that I can recall, a significant reduction in the number of disciplinary actions, which I take to mean our students are behaving better, which I can't tell from just reducing suspensions. So that's really good. And I thought it was particularly significant that the reductions were most in disruptive acts, defiance of authority, and unauthorized presence, and that you're looking at defining these terms more precisely. Because one of the things we know is that vague infractions are an invitation to discrimination. Yeah. I mean, they're just an open invitation to it. And we were successful a couple of years ago in getting rid of inappropriate behavior, which was probably the worst culprit in that. And I think that there's a lot to be done. You know, you mentioned getting more definition for disruptive acts and defiance of authority in order to target interventions, but not only to target interventions, but to reduce discrimination. Because if you can say more precisely, this is the conduct and no other, I think you will see significant reductions in the racial disparities. And so this is really good stuff. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Agreed, and ditto what Jonathan said. But in addition to that, I appreciate the attempts to include that percentage of total student body and not just the incidence of whatever we're measuring. However, if we could flip back to an earlier slide, there's at least one place, well, there's more than one place where we haven't quite done that yet. Right, oh, yep. No, not that one. There was, okay. Go after that. There, here we go. Because here we're talking about unique students suspended from 2009-10 to right up till now. The reason why, I want to really impress, I've made this point, I think, in prior years, the reason why it's important to talk about the percentage of the student body that gets suspended as opposed to the discrete numbers. It's because from 2009-10 to now, we've had, generally speaking, maybe some ups and downs, an increase in the number of students at this school. A fairly dramatic increase in the number of students in this school. And if we have more students, and we still have fewer numbers of students being suspended, then our chart is going to look even better than that. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, to use a bad, why wouldn't we want to display it that way? So we do have these.
So let me, yeah.
This is really nice, and this is new. Wasn't in the,
Right.
not all this was in
Right,
the.
these,
Yeah.
these get to what you're saying, though,
It does,
right? Total
but just,
population.
we've got to get some consistency around this so that we
Yeah.
can tell the right story,
Exactly. And
These
what
I love. I was going there next, but
And there's
I
trend
wanted to
lines
go
too
back.
that are,
Yep.
these are the trend lines by subgroup for percentage of
Yes.
population suspended. So you see back in
Really
9,
appreciate
10,
these.
30% of African-American students were suspended
huge.
here at ETHS.
Yeah.
And now we're down to about 14%.
I'm just going to add that, the footnote to this is, I joined the board about then, and I sat in a meeting, and I'm not saying I was responsible for this, because we've had many, many people who have done all the work on the ground. But I remember, and I've made this point before, sitting in a meeting with Rachel Heyman and all of your predecessors, all three of you, and talking about this very issue around a table and raising some alarm bells. And the rest of the board at that time joined in with that concern. And it's I would say one of the most gratifying things of many of my time on this board is to see that line. And I really do think you deserve a great deal of credit for the role you've played in that, no matter how you present it, but I think you can present it even better. Thank you.
Pat?
So I also want to echo the congratulations, and really great to see those numbers going down in a lot of places. I guess I'm interested in, and this can be a little bit anecdotal at this point, but what's behind some of these numbers? So for example, Jonathan pointed out that the disruptive and defiance was down, which is great, but the tardy numbers still seem a little uneven, significantly higher numbers of African-American and Latino kids versus white kids. So I guess on the plus or any other areas you want to go, what's behind some of these numbers in terms of what we're doing that you're seeing as effective, or things you want to do more of to even improve the numbers when we see them next year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, I'm trying to kind of make that assessment through the hallways. I can tell you our kids feel more comfortable in the hallways. I can tell you that, as far as being tardy. And I think our dress code may contribute to a lot of the numbers here. Students feeling just more connected and having an expectation to be in class. There's still a story to tell here. Our kids are still late. A lot of students are still late to class. Students are serving, how they need to serve to get the credit back. But we're continuing to try to figure that story out with regarding the tardies.
I might add about tardies. In just the most recent years, our safety staff now carries handheld, basically computers. And they, if somebody is in the hallway after the bell. They issue them an entry pass into their class. That has created a lot more consistency in reporting tardies than in previous years when it depended on the classroom teacher. And we had some classroom teachers who never reported a tardy, and others who did. But then the data was maybe not as reliable. And I do think that in recent years, just the way that the data is collected, I think has given some additional numbers to that. But I can also tell you, being a person who's in the hallways all the time, that while there are, a number of students who are still tardy, within 2 minutes after the bell, our halls are clear. So we've come a long way, because when I first came here, now in my 13th year, 5, 6, 8, 11, 12 minutes after the bell, the hallways were not clear. So again, there's a little bit of an anecdotal here, but well, it's more than anecdotal, it's empirical, but there's definitely, so are we making progress? We certainly are. And for most of the 42-minute period every day, while there are tardies, for almost all that time, those hallways are clear and students are in class and they are participating in instruction. And that is a massive change from, let's say, 10 years ago, where it wasn't just the number of tardies, but how many people were still missing 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes of instructional time. And that has changed dramatically.
Can I add that really matters, not just for tardies, but also when you see an 18% decrease in the number of days students spent outside of class, right? When you see that, that's an increase, right, in the amount of time students spend inside of class. And anything we can do to have kids in class learning, time on task is directly beneficial to our student achievement.
Phoebe.
So I think the number one thing that I'm most excited about is the next steps, because I think that what it's doing is it's taking it out of the administration and out of the teacher's hands and kind of putting it into the students' hands. So I guess my question would be, who exactly are the students that have been involved? It's actually kind of a two-part question. So the first part is, who are the students that have been involved in the Kingian nonviolence, or the next steps, just as an example? And are they the students who are portrayed in these numbers, who are still currently getting suspension and still currently being tardy to class?
That's a great answer. That's a great question. I'd say, the students who really got excited about bringing this to our school were not the students who are receiving the consequences for their behavior. They were excited about what it meant to bring it back to one day have a critical mass of students that would be all grades, and students, who have some degree of behavior infraction or not. Again, to create this brave, peaceful community that extended, to all the students. So right now, the cohort of students who were trained grades 9 through 12 this year are students, not all student leaders, but some just students who had an interest in promoting peace in our school. So the hope is to have biannual trainings for students and trainings for teachers as well, to continue to get that critical mass for students who are really interested in reconciliation, who are really interested in having a restorative practice instead of, fights or verbal infractions.
That sounds great. I think that that kind of answered the second part of my question, which is just how, if these students aren't the ones who are portrayed in these numbers, how do we expect to translate the Kingian ideas to students who are directly involved? But I think you kind of answered that just in that hopefully the students who are getting this training are then the students who are also spreading it throughout the
Yeah,
school.
well, I'll tell you, one of the ideas that some of the students have already brought to us is as an opportunity for an alternative to suspension, come to a training, that may happen on a Saturday Wild Kid Academy, where a student can have their detentions reduced or a portion of their suspensions reduced. We can do that, and they're excited about really being creative with how that's being taught.
Phoebe, I would also, to your point, I think you used the word developing a critical mass of people, and I haven't done the full Kingian nonviolence training, but I've worked with Gail Schechter and did the mini training, which included some of our students across the street and, from one of the early trainings. And so I know, this much about it. And it is about creating a critical mass, and the phrase used in the training is beloved community. It's all about creating a beloved community and learning how to operate within that community and what the standards of behavior are. So it's sort of like, the training we do around race or anything else, you need to create that critical mass, and the more people who have gotten on the same page, the better success you'll have.
I was going to just add, it started with about 5 or 6 students who were trained. And now we have upwards of about 35, 40 kids. So these kids are on a mission, and we love supporting them.
I would also add that they're very conscious about who's missing. When we have the conversations at the discipline committee, that they're very mindful that they're speaking or they're sharing information outside of themselves. It's so I appreciate that too with this group, that it's not a clear representation, but they're very mindful of that versus thinking that they have all the answers and that they know. They came in with a mindset of saying, yeah, but how do we engage the students that we're talking about? So I agree with Phoebe. I'm excited about the next steps, especially the disruptive acts. I mentioned that last year. That was big for me because that is the biggest group where our Black male students are represented. It's the largest group, rather. And until we know what it means, it's very subjective. I don't know, what that means as clearly as I know what it means to be tardy or to have alcohol or to, fight or whatever. I just don't know. So I think if we can get at that, then we can definitely target how we can change that. But that's going to take some work, so I'm excited to see what that looks like in further conversation.
Thanks, guys, for your phenomenal work. I see us trending, and the refreshing part about it is that it's student-centered. It's trying to reach the student where they are, and of course, less punitive. I'm very curious about the drug offenses and infractions. I see that African-American males, or African-Americans in general, have the highest percentage of those. I haven't come across any data that says that drug use amongst African-American youth is higher than white youth. So can you dig just a little bit deeper in that? Why are those numbers so much higher than all other groups, demographic groups, drug use?
And just to give you some context to that, Jude, the last use survey that we gave, our white students reported more use than our students of color, yet our students of color have more consequences for use. So we're still trying to unpack why that is.
But remember, we only are able to identify what occurs in the school setting, not in homes and rec rooms and that kind of thing.
it's all tied together, right? All of this conversation is tied to our equity work and understanding how we all respond as adults. How do adults respond to students, and what's the expectation of adults? And even as we talk about defining disruptive acts and acts of defiance, you know, what does that mean, and how do we get folks to be consistent in really identifying what's going on with students, and even in looking at something as glaring as drug offenses around here, what does that mean as well? I mean, at some point, right, we have to be specific about what we're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
I'll be really brief. I just want to make two observations. In the 9 or 10 years that I've been talking about this as a member of this board, and when we finally got some focus and some energy behind really taking this on, I would have been afraid to hope that we could have achieved the kind of reductions and the kind of results that we've achieved so far. And I find that just enormously gratifying. And the other thing that's really gratifying to me is your opening comment, Dr. Robinson, when you said the work continues. Up front, you said that instead of at the end, which I really liked. I appreciate that. So thank you, and this is great. It's just good news. Hard work. And it's hard. I know. It's really hard work. So great job.
I feel like in many ways this is the heart of what we do. I know I keep saying that about everything, but
It all is, and the
It
board
all
has set these
is.
goals, and we're
Right.
very cognizant of
Right.
that.
Well, and it speaks to what Dr. Bavis said. You know, if we can get at this, then they can be in class
yes,
more, right? Not just the tardians, but the suspensions and the discipline acts and the detentions and everything that they have to do to address the discipline
all
will
the
mean
disruption
that they're
causes goes away.
they're in class and we're doing what you're doing what you're supposed to do.
That's right.
and we've changed the culture, which is what we've been trying to do. We know how difficult and complex that is, but this is what it means to change the culture, to get the students engaged and connected. We were talking about extracurricular clubs, activities. I'm just feeling like these reports are very similar. They're very important.
I was just going to add, it does come down to a sense of trust and proactive response. And that takes a lot of time.
Yes.
You know, we have teachers, students, and our deans who are taking that extra time to intervene and engage, to let the kids feel connected.
Right.
And when that happens, they're less likely to be sent to the office. They're more engaged in class. They're more likely to participate in an extracurricular activity.
Right.
So it does. It all connects.
It all connects. And there's a story behind every case, right? Every situation, there's a story.
Yeah, and I have one more thing to add too. And our deans are at this point where they are functioning as interventionists. I can't tell you how many conversations the deans are having with students just about executive functioning, their behaviors, and conflict resolution. I mean, just many conversations in that way. And that's exactly how they should be functioning.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
You'll make me shout. That's the work.
Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Good stuff.
All right. Okay. So we are going to continue. Our next item is comments from the public. Dr. Bavis, what do we have?
We have no comments from the public this evening.
All right, no comments from the public. Next item is FOIA. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our packet.
Yes, we have FOIAs from Simpson, 2 from Mora, 1 from Esther, and 1 from Hamilton. The responses are in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is board committee reports. Did we have any board committee reports this, Gretchen?
Not really a report. I just wanted to say we had a really, really great EdRed kickoff luncheon that Pat attended with me and also Mary Rodino. And some representatives from District 65 were there. And in fact, I think the turnout was the highest it's been in a while, which was a great way to welcome our brand-new executive director, who I think put together a really terrific lunch with high attendance and a pretty engaging speaker from M-Hub, which is, oh, help me out, Pat. How do you describe that M-Hub? It's sort of a manufacturing
Yeah, it's sort of the
centered
maker
tech-
space, but in a very,
entrepreneurial,
yeah.
techie.
and giving opportunities to, it's not just a one-off, but, you know, schools come there, they go and do things. It's a
Lots
kind
of
of a
stuff.
dynamic view of makerspace.
Yeah, yeah. It was really interesting. So one of the founder, I guess, was there and had a really engaging presentation. He had a line of people talking with him afterwards. So it was really great. And I think already, hopefully this board and our administrators who are on the mailing list are already getting better communication from EdRed about legislative developments and other related topics of interest. So I think we've sort of turned the corner there and making some good progress.
Just on committees, do we have an idea when the policy committee might be meeting? Anytime soon?
We do not know, because we always time them with the press, and they have still not issued the fall issue of the press. We think that may be because there was a lot of legislative action this past year, and they're still trying to get everything updated. But I think it is a fair assumption to guess that it should certainly be in the near weeks, because it's definitely due.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Oh, Mark, yes, sir.
Real quick, I attended a meeting of the ETHS Foundation on the 20th of September, and I didn't prepare a formal report of the meeting. It was just doing their routine business, and their minutes will be available. But I did want to point out that they made a special emphasis to invite everybody to the showcase on November 4th in Beardsley. A lot of great entertainment, and it's a big deal to them to get participation. It would be great. I'm going to be out of town, but it'd be great if we could get a lot of board members to attend the showcase on November 4th at Beardsley. The other thing, their annual campaign, we're entering the fourth quarter here, and so as we all kind of, if you're like my family, we kind of put a lot of that donating stuff off till the end of the year and get it all in. But I think it would be great if we could list all the board members from this board as donors to the annual campaign of our foundation. So just give that some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for the shout out about the showcase as well. I think I sent something to the board about serving as ushers for that. I signed up to do that, and they would be happy to have anybody from the board serve. I think that would be great if we could. If we're available, if we're in town, we can do that. That would be good. Any other reports? If not, we are, Phoebe, ready for your student board report.
Great. Okay. So I'd like to start with what's going on today, and today is Indigenous Peoples Day, which is being celebrated by all ETHS students, and especially our ETHS Indigenous Rights Club, which was established last school year. Their main goal as a club is to educate students and the community about Indigenous rights and encourage activism that supports Indigenous rights around the country. The club's goal specifically for Indigenous Peoples Day is that while they understand that today is recognized by the school as Indigenous Peoples Day rather than Columbus Day, they would like the school to understand that support of Indigenous rights doesn't stop there, and that there are ways that it could be expanded, including changing curriculums, discussing issues of land ownership, and possibly giving students the day off in the future in the name of Indigenous rights and Indigenous people. So before today, before the long weekend, on Wednesday night, the National Student Movement Against Gun Violence took place in the ETHS auditorium. So the event was sponsored by the Democratic Party of Evanston and was planned and hosted by student organizers, including myself, Molly Hartenstein, and Liana Wallace. We also had March for Our Lives students Tia Amoy Roberts and Sophie Whitney speak, as well as Trayvon Bosley, who's a student with the Brave Youth Leaders of the St. Sabina Parish in Chicago, as well as ETHS poets Nia Williams and Liana Wallace. For me, being a part of that whole experience, I think the most impactful thing was just realizing that Parkland students are students, just like ETHS students, and that gun violence can literally happen to anyone, and it does happen to anyone. And it's not an issue that we can forget about or move away from, regardless of what happens in the media or what happens at any point. This is not something that we can just skip over and move on to the next issue. So it was a short week last week because of parent-teacher conferences, which resulted in students having the day off from school on both Thursday and Friday. In the past, we've had a half day on Thursday and then had Friday off. I think I can speak for at least myself, and I'm assuming the vast majority of students when I say that the 2 full days were preferred. Coming up this Wednesday is Wild Kid Futures Day. So each class will experience something different. The freshmen, which I'm very envious of, will experience Calvin Terrell for the first time. It's quite an experience. I still remember not only the message that he left with students, but also, and I think more importantly, the way that I felt during and after his presentation. It was unlike anything I had ever felt before, and I've rarely felt anything like it since. So that is quite an experience. The sophomores will be doing a career pathway day, kind of like just thinking about their future in a very loosely structured type of way, which is also good. And then juniors will be taking the PSAT, which is a fun coincidence because we just saw the National Merit Scholars, and they will have their chance with the PSAT to hopefully be recognized next year. So good luck, juniors. And then seniors will be either attending post-secondary education forums, learning about financial aid and like other options besides college, or just working on college applications, which is what I will be doing. So, and then super fun, YAMO opens on Friday, so I know I'm excited about it. Other students are excited about it, families, and also just community members are excited about it. It is completely sold out, so I hope you got your tickets. That's what's going on.
Sold out in a matter of hours. Whew. Right, thank you, Phoebe. Dr. Witherspoon, follow that.
Performances over 3 different weekends sold out in a matter of hours.
Matter of hours. Yes.
Go Yamo. This first item I'm going to mention, if anybody is tuned in who is a parent or a guardian, listen carefully. This is a big one. This Saturday, October 13th, we're going to host our first ever ETHS Parent Summit. We've had summits for a number of different groups within the school, affinity groups, and this is a great chance for ETHS parents to attend the first Parent Summit. It's going to be a part of our social consciousness series. The theme is Now is the Time, Conversations on Racism and Equity. Registration is still open. It closes, however, this Wednesday, October 10th at 4 p.m. It's necessary to pre-register for this conference. It'll be, by the way, held Saturday morning. It's a morning conference. So highly encourage every parent and guardian in the community to register for this. You can go to our website, you can get registered, but we have to know how many to expect because there's a lot of planning going in on this one. Thank you to Mark for lifting up the Showcase ETHS by the foundation. I'll just reiterate that that is November 4th. That's from 2:30 to 4 o'clock in Beardsley Gym. And you can go to our website right now and purchase tickets to that Showcase ETHS. We, this very evening, have had, and it would be over now, but Astro Teller is here and presented a fan presentation this evening. Dr. Teller is also an ETHS grad and also one of our ETHS distinguished alumni, as well as being internationally famous in the world of science. So he will be in the high school tomorrow morning and will actually be visiting some classes and doing a talk in the auditorium for a number of classes. So Astro Teller, just wanted to lift up that one of our extraordinary alums is here in Evanston right now. Also want to point out that this Friday, Ibram Kendi, Dr. Kendi, who is the author of the New York Times bestseller called Stamped from the Beginning, is a keynote speaker at another fan presentation, and really encourage folks to come out for that. That's at 7 o'clock Friday night. Just want people to be alert that we have a lot of fine arts performances and activities coming up now that we're a little deeper into the fall. There are events open to the public. We have the Jazz Big Band Concert, the Wind Symphony Concert, the Fall Music Concert, and of course our ever popular YAMO, which includes a lot of our music students as well. Again, you can forget about YAMO tickets, but for the information on any of those other activities, it's available on our website. Thank you, Phoebe, for pointing out Wild Kid Futures Day. It is a great plan, and it ought to be a really a worthwhile day coming up this Wednesday. And thank you for your shout out about Calvin Terrell, because I hope folks were listening carefully to that affirmation about how amazing it is to spend a morning or an afternoon with Calvin Terrell. Well, here's your chance. We have family night with Calvin Terrell at 7 p.m. in the auditorium on Wednesday evening. So he is for the freshmen Wednesday morning, and parents and family members are invited to come at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. We have worked with Calvin several years in a row now, board. If you have never heard him, you need to be here 7 o'clock this Wednesday night in the auditorium, and you will understand why students like Phoebe, who experienced him back as a freshman, is still saying that I only wish that I could be participating this Wednesday. It is worth attending. And finally, we are starting a new communication system so that if there are ever any events that occur at ETHS in which the community needs to be notified immediately, that we now have are putting together and going online with a text messaging service. We will put out a number of announcements about this over the course of the month of October. Board, you've been receiving information. You must do it yourself, because it has to be from the phone on which you want to receive the text message. And it's basically text like to, whatever, it's a number, and all you have to do is text, I think, the word yes, if I'm, Marcus, am I remembering right? The instructions are there. Basically, you enter a 6-digit code and you text yes, and you are on. But I would encourage everybody in the community, if we ever have something occurring at ETHS that everybody in the community needs to be alerted to immediately, this broadcast system is now going to be available from ETHS. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Very important information. All right, so we are at our action item. The first item is the consent agenda, and it includes approval of revised international travel dates for China, for the China exchange trip. Approval of minutes from September 11th, 2018, the closed session meeting. And also the minutes from the September 11th, 2018 regular meeting. Approval of bills, personnel agenda, appointments to staff, support staff, safety, and operations. And I believe there is an addendum, which includes educational stipends, FASH honorarium correction, and a resignation.
Did you get the leaves of absence maternity certified?
No, I'm not done yet.
Sorry.
Right, change in status, which includes educational salary adjustment and stipends, leaves of absence, maternity, certified safety. There's a resignation, support staff, operations, and retirement certified. Could I have a motion for approval, please?
Move approval?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is old and new business. Does anybody have old or new business to bring forth? If not, then the next item is polling of the board. Does anybody have any additional information to add? Hearing none, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.